Hey, welcome back. Do you want to add up to 10 years to your life? Good. Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the party. What if I told you discipline isn't a punishment, it's your ticket to freedom, and without it, you're a prisoner to your own impulses? Discipline is a gateway to freedom. Freedom of choice, time, and mental space. Do you ever feel like you're spinning your wheels, stuck in the same habits, with goals unachieved? Could the answer be as simple as mastering discipline? Today, we're diving into whether discipline really equals freedom or if that's just a cliche. I used to think discipline was like broccoli. You know it's good for you, but you're not exactly excited about it. Then I discovered something unexpected. Discipline is the opposite of boring. It's empowering. By the end of this episode, you'll see discipline not as a restriction, but as a gift you give yourself. Ready to shift your perspective? Then let's dive in. Oh, and before I forget, we will of course back it up with science, philosophy, and the best example. The man who lost 5 stone, aka 32-ish kilograms, because we've got a lot of European and American listeners in here as well. So, let's go, baby! I would like to give thanks to today's show sponsors, Being Well Travel Company. Hit them up across all the usual places to get expertly planned trips, deals, and experiences around the world that will leave you feeling well. Now, back to the show. So we're going to explore 2 paradoxes now. First one is the definitions that I think people get put off by, and the second is about whether you respect yourself enough to execute on these things. First, let's dive into this. The difference between discipline and self-discipline. So, discipline often refers to external structure and control. The official definition is that discipline often involves external rules, systems, or guidelines that impose structure and order to your life. It's about following a predefined framework to achieve a specific goal. How do I see this? Discipline can be enforced by outside forces, meaning you're accountable to someone or something else. And you know that I love a stoic take on any topic that we're discussing. And as this is the one that I also have inked on my arm, you guys are going to get it. Marcus Aurelius, be tolerant of others and strict with yourself. My take on discipline alone is that external discipline is useful, but without internal commitment, it's not going to last. Now, self-discipline, aka inner willpower and personal accountability. You might be able to tell that I'm a bit biased here, and I am, so I'm sorry. But please get in touch if you don't agree. I'm unopposed in my own thoughts in this office, but I do love to chat about any opposing views. Anyways, self-discipline. So the definition of self-discipline. Self-discipline is the personal, internal drive to follow through on actions without needing external enforcement. It's about aligning your actions with your own values and long-term goals. Oof. You know how much I love values. An example of self-discipline could be waking up early to train for a marathon or for a 5K without anyone telling you to do so. The reality is that self-discipline is a deeper, more intentional form of discipline. It requires self-awareness, internal motivation, and the ability to resist short-term temptations for longer-term gains. Another quick input from Marcus, because I couldn't resist when preparing for this episode. He says you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Self-discipline is about mastering your own mind, not relying on external systems. I'm going to give you some opposing examples to really hammer home this point. So we're going to look at discipline versus self-discipline here. We've got external rules or authority, or internal willpower and motivation. We've got accountable to others and accountable to oneself. We've got following a workplace schedule or creating and maintaining a personal routine. Compliance with established standards or alignment with personal values and goals. So don't allow yourself to hear or say, I need to be more disciplined, and think that it's about rules or other people's standards or schedules. This is about you. This is about you finding the willpower and the motivation for yourself, being accountable to yourself, and finding some fucking goals and values that force you to do that, because that's what I've done. Let me ask you a question now. Who are you accountable to? Unless you answered me, not me, but you, pretty quickly there, then perhaps you not only have something to answer around self-discipline, but also around self-respect. This might not be you, but I'd like to take a minute to explore it with you, and you can reflect on how you feel about it. So let's take a minute to explore that connection between self-respect and self-discipline. Self-respect fuels self-worth. It's rooted in how much you value yourself and your own well-being. Without it, it's harder to believe that your efforts, goals, or rituals are worth the long-term commitments. If you don't respect yourself, it's easy to think, why bother? I don't deserve this anyways. A lack of self-respect, and I'm saying this from experience, can lead to self-sabotage. People who struggle with self-respect often engage in behaviours that undermine their progress. Procrastination, unhealthy habits, or quitting at the first hurdle or sign of friction. The science behind this shows that studies in self-determination theory show that low self-esteem can lead to poor follow-through because there's no strong internal motivation. Self-respect can actually boost self-discipline. It builds internal accountability. When you respect yourself, you're more likely to hold yourself accountable. You see your goals as non-negotiable because you believe you deserve the rewards they bring. Discipline becomes less about punishment and more about self-care. For example, instead of I have to work out because I'm not good enough, it becomes I'm exercising because I care about my health and I want to feel strong. It creates a feedback loop. Every time you stick to a ritual, you reinforce your sense of self-worth. Through many therapy sessions and reading, I've learned that there can be barriers to self-discipline when self-respect is low. What often happens leads you to a fear of failure. If you lack self-respect, failure feels like confirmation of your own inadequacy. This fear can prevent you from even starting or sticking to a disciplined path. It can lead to a lack of boundaries. Often people with low self-respect struggle to set boundaries, making it harder to prioritize their own goals and rituals over external demands. Lastly, and flipping worst in my experience, negative self-talk. You'll never stick to this. You always fail. Remember the last time. Negative self-talk undermines motivation and makes discipline feel like an uphill battle. Self-respect to generate self-discipline. I hope that makes sense. Self-respect to generate self-discipline. We've now established the difference between discipline, rules and regulations versus self-discipline, which is an alignment of your actions towards your goals. And now we've also looked at the intrinsic need for some self-respect to allow you to be self-disciplined. If that self-respect chatter hits some chords with you, I'm going to give you some practical advice that I've had shared with me over the years before we move on to the actual practical, tangible tips of today's pod. Firstly, reframe discipline as self-respect. Replace negative narratives about discipline with empowering ones. I'm sticking to this because I deserve to feel good about myself. Set boundaries to protect your time. Prioritize your daily rituals by learning to say no to distractions. This reinforces that your goals are worth the effort for you. Practice self-compassion. Please be kind to yourself. Someone once said to me, Damien, what would you say if a friend told you that they were feeling as low as you are? And the answer, I would tell them to be kinder to themselves. Sometimes you need to be your own best friend. Since I started this podcast, I barely mentioned this guy's name, David Goggins. And actually, it's a complete sin because I owe this guy so much. Have you heard of him? Let me know what you think in the comments or drop me a DM. Maybe you have or maybe you haven't. But let me tell you, when you need a kick up the arse, David Goggins Can't Hurt Me is like taking a rocket clean up there. Apologies. So in case you haven't heard of him, who is David Goggins? Goggins is a former Navy SEAL. He's an ultra-endurance athlete and frankly, one of the toughest people alive. But he wasn't always that way. His story is about overcoming an abusive childhood, obesity, and self-doubt to become a symbol of mental resilience and discipline. I don't want to spoil his book in case you're going to put it on Santa's list, but I think there are some wicked examples of what we've discussed already today that I need to share. Today's daily tips are brought to you by the man himself, Mr. Goggins. All these are written up in my black book that I always end the show on, by the way. And in fact, I think these were some of the first entries in there. So, the first of my key lessons from Can't Hurt Me, the accountability mirror. Goggins' brutally honest tool for self-reflection. Write down your weaknesses and goals on sticky notes and put them on your mirror that you look at every day and face them every day. He says that this is about owning your truth. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. I've done this, and let me tell you, it works. It works real good. Your second practical tip from Can't Hurt Me, callousing your mind. This is Goggins' concept of building mental toughness through intentional discomfort. He reckons that you don't grow when things are easy. You grow when there's resistance, when life pushes back. He emphasizes that intentionally seeking out situations that are hard or uncomfortable, this could be running in bad weather, pushing through exhaustion, or stepping into a situation that scares you. He, like me, repeats hard tasks over and over again, even when they're boring or grueling. For him, running miles daily or waking up at 4 a.m. isn't just about physical fitness, it's about training his mind to show up even when the motivation is gone. But this doesn't need to be something wild. We've talked about this before. Start small, find one thing each day that makes you uncomfortable, whether it's a cold shower, speaking up in a meeting, or just running a mile. You can start small to callous your mind and then add. And I think this last one might be one of my favourite, the 40% rule. When you think you're done, you're only at 40% of your capacity. Goggins explains how most people quit long before they've reached their potential. Whenever I'm trying something hard and I think I need to stop, I remind myself that most people will stop at that point. But I've got 60% more left in the tank. It's driven me to achieve so much this year. Can't Hurt Me is relatable, yet extreme. I get that. Goggins doesn't sugarcoat anything. He swears a lot, so don't listen to the audiobook in the car with kids. He's raw, he's real, and inspiring all in one. If you're struggling with excuses or self-doubt, this book is the slap in the face that you need right now. Hopefully these tips inspire you to take something with you today. I encourage you to take 10 minutes tonight to create your own accountability mirror. Write down your excuses, your fears, and your goals, and face them every day. Start small, but start. Discipline is the path to freedom. Discipline isn't about restriction. It's about creating the life you want, free from chaos, regret, and distractions. So, go find some post-it notes, go find a mirror and get to work. Let me know what you do with today's episode. Are you making a change? Are you starting something? Are you building your self-respect or self-discipline? Reach out to me on socials or tag me in your stories. The best inputs will win a £100 voucher from our show sponsor, Being Well Travel Company. And thanks for everyone that's reached out so far to tell me that you've ran a race, started learning a language. I mean, so many different things, all from the content I put out. But before I go, somewhat of a tradition now. When I was bedridden with a foot-long laceration in my knee post-surgery, I wanted to bring value. During that time, I started a practice. I started to write everything that I'd learned and was learning in a book for my kids. And it's from that book that I share this quote with you today to end this podcast. And it's from the man himself, David Goggins. Denial is the ultimate comfort zone. Big love.